Thanks so much, Tara and Carl, and good morning to everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this kickoff workshop. So today I'll be providing a brief overview of the wonderfully fruitful relationship that SST has enjoyed with Norway over the last few years, but with a very special focus on the Zero Plastics to the Seas of Africa flagship project within SST, which Norway and very specifically Carl were instrumental in helping SST conceptualize. And of course, I'll be giving an overview of our upcoming conference of the same name. I'm here today proudly representing the Sustainable Seas Trust, but also very specifically the current senior CEO, Tony Ravink, from whom I'm slowly taking over the reins from over the next 17 months. Tony is the founding trustee and a passionate pioneer of SST. He conceptualized in partnership with other partners, including Norway, a truly exceptional program through the African Marine Waste Network. And it's my pleasure giving this presentation in his stead and with his blessing, as this is a program that is very close to his heart. So from Tony and myself, along with everyone at SST, a very, very warm welcome to all of you. We at SST consider this partnership and this program not only to be exceptionally exciting, but also an essential one. And the issues that are being tackled through this program are so big that no one organization or country working alone can win the battle against plastics and climate change. And these two are actually inextricably linked. We in South Africa are very proud to be associated with Norway. So in this presentation, I'll be giving an overview of some of the high-level themes that underscore the need to exchange ideas, develop understanding, learn from one another, and open doors to long-term collaborative research and education programs. While many of the problems that are related to plastic packaging and waste management in Norway and South Africa may be similar in name, they are actually very different in reality. Our cultures and societies and our circumstances are so different that it's almost certain that the way in which we in Africa need to solve the challenges may not work so easily in Norway and other countries. And equally, what you in Norway do and what is important to you will need to be modified and applied to Africa. What will be really important in these exchanges is to better understand the cultural and social differences that are found in each of these different countries. I have chosen examples from the African Marine Waste Network programs, which has the title Towards Zero Plastics to the Seas of Africa, which is also the theme and main objective of the African Marine Waste Network as a whole. And this project is primarily funded by the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and within Norway, SST also works with the NTNU and Grid Arendal. I'm going to be talking today about the value, the role and impact of scientific research, education, economic approaches, networking, films, websites, artwork, and conferences. And collectively, we believe these all contribute to what is being called for by the United Nations Environmental Assembly, which is the development of national and regional action plans that will contribute to policy development and change within the context of zero plastics to the seas of Africa. So these are therefore all really, really important issues. Now, when it comes to research, it's really, really interesting that many in industry, civil society, and the media will say that we know enough and the problems are so big and so very urgent that we really should abandon doing any further research. We just need to get out there and get things done. And we at SST believe that there is an argument to be made to support these notions if research happens in glass towers and in isolation. But we believe that research needs to be linked to real and measurable outcomes and action. And it's important to realize that research provides the knowledge and data that steers action. When we call upon decision makers to develop strategies and policies, it is science and research that they need to use as evidence to support their policies. Therefore, action and research must go hand in hand, and they must be concurrent. What's the point of taking action if we can't determine whether what we did was effective or whether indeed it even had an impact? So what do we need to look at? The obvious starting question is understanding where we are right now, where we want to go, and how do we get there? So where we are right now provides a measurable baseline for us. Where we want to be provides the target and the vision that we want to achieve, and how we get there provides the action plan and the strategy. Now, within the context of zero plastics to the seas of Africa, given that it is well established that the plastics come principally from land, we want to be able to change the picture on the left to the picture on the right, everywhere. So that means that we must have a measurable baseline, which will allow us to see whether what we have done has actually achieved anything towards our goal of zero plastics to the seas of Africa. We need to then know how much plastic is flowing into the seas, where it is coming from, and what its impact is on the environment. And we also then need to be able to develop a strategy which defines where the plastics are coming from. So there are two main sources: the new plastics that are being produced and discarded into the environment, many of which actually our research in South Africa has shown are takeaway containers and single-use plastics. That's an internationally well-known fact. And then, of course, another main source is those plastics that are already in the environment. So this requires us then to have two overall strategies in place. First, we need changes at every step of the value chain, including designing for recycling or the environment, adequate recycling infrastructure and capacity, a wide range of suitable end-use products and markets, etc., as well as then curbing littering behavior where people eat, sleep, play, and work. And overall, to be able to stop plastics from being. And then, of course, the second strategy would be to encourage everyone to assist with cleaning up that which is already in the environment. So here I'm talking about things like beach and inland cleanups. Within SST, we have a program specifically focused on this called Operation Clean Spot, which is an exciting citizen science project being piloted by SST in the Nelson Mandela area to rid the beautiful bay of a significant proportion of land-based mismanaged waste, which currently plagues the city. Now, Operation Clean Spot focuses on encouraging stakeholders to partner with SST to clean up heavily polluted hotspots, specifically targeting plastic pollution. SST encourages all stakeholders to take ownership of their spot within their communities by joining hands with Operation Clean Spot. And Operation Clean Spot is working to help people realize that their impact on the oceans and seas starts inland, where they are living, where they're working, and when they're playing. By working together with Operation Clean Spot, SST believes Nelson Mandela Bay will be transformed into a clean city, thereby providing proof of concept for the program by being the first African city to achieve zero plastics to the seas of Africa. And of course, we then want to roll that model out into the rest of South Africa and into Africa. So in terms of developing baselines against which we can measure our impact, the SST team has developed and published a marine litter monitoring manual, which gives methodologies and methods for monitoring litter in different environments. So example, beaches, mangroves, rivers, etc. The methods in the manual are continually being improved, and SST is already working on the second edition, which will include updated and new chapters. So this is really important because it's very strategically important for data to be comparable against consistent methods of collection. By developing these sorts of techniques and by sharing them, we can ensure that the different teams in different countries are collecting data in the same way, making it comparable. As Carl mentioned, the SST team is working with many countries in Africa to develop regional baselines, looking at differences between different countries and, of course, sharing ideas. Our focus since 2018 has been with those countries in the Nairobi Convention and WIOMSA. But now, moving forward towards 2027, we will include those countries in the Abidjan Convention as well. And this is incredibly valuable for us, not only from a partnership and collaboration perspective, but also from a consistency in data collection and comparison perspective. What this means is that if we have a baseline for litter and litter monitoring, we can develop strategies for different types of interventions and actions that are required for us to move forward to achieve our objectives and ultimate outcomes. This will, of course, ensure that our tactics are underpinned by credible research. If we are successful in our approach and our monitoring and evaluation framework, not only will we see a significant decline in the plastic leakage in the environment, but we'll also have a model that can easily be replicated and adapted for the rest of Africa to assist all countries of Africa meet their sustainable development goals. Now, if we're not successful, our M&E framework will highlight this for us, allowing us to, through adaptive management, remain agile and be able to change our tactics. But we can't do this without the baseline research and ongoing monitoring and evaluation. So some of the research projects that we oversee within SST include remote sensing and mapping, which aims to monitor changes in litter loads through aerial imagery. And in February 2020, 5 sites in Nelson Mandela Bay were surveyed using aerial imagery obtained from drones to quantify litter loads. And to determine whether there had been any change in the litter loads, the same 5 sites were flown in March again in 2021. And these will be continuously monitored every 4 months until the end of 2022. We've also developed a mobile app called Litter Logger, And this app has been specifically developed with Africa in mind and geared towards the African context. The app follows the data sheets we have developed and provides an easy entry point for everyday citizens to assist us with our data collection and be an important part of a meaningful movement that we are driving within South Africa and Africa. So here's a very short overview clip of SST's research to give you a break from me as well.
Now, every person produces some plastic waste every day.
The more people we have, the more pollution we're going to have. The issue with Africa is we don't have the facilities, but also we don't have data. We don't know how big the problem actually is. So the point of research is to find out what is the size of the problem, and then what are we going to do in Africa to solve it. We're doing a huge amount of work in many different spheres of research into plastics and the environment. What our research department does really is we're trying to quantify and qualify the litter. So how much of it is there, where is it, and what are the litter items that we need to be concentrating on.
The second fundamental pillar of SST's strategy with respect to realizing zero plastics to the seas of Africa is the pivotal role that education, capacity building, and skills development plays in Africa. Experts at our last conference, the African Marine Waste Network Conference in July 2017, and the African Group of UNEA 3 identified education, capacity building, and skills transfer as high priorities in Africa if we are to meet the challenges of waste management. Each country in Africa, including South Africa, needs to grow its capacity in understanding the issues surrounding plastic waste management within tertiary and secondary education institutions, research organizations, governments, and municipalities, as well as industry. And so in response to this, the SST education team is developing techniques to make learning easier, fun, and most importantly, relatable to move towards our overall target. So this is including things like compiling and testing teaching resources and education curricula to develop the framework for an education resource book, which you see there on the right. The African Waste Academy is an education facility with a strong focus on networking through education. It's working towards distributing education programs across the African continent via e-learning, which has the exciting ability to provide educating and learning facilities online. The African Waste Academy aims to meet requirements of multiple sectors, targeting educators, learners, researchers, business people, industry experts, and provincial and national government across Africa. And importantly, and very excitingly for us, SST also oversees the African Youth Waste Network, which is an active platform for collaboration, resource development, and knowledge sharing amongst youth within and between countries. The youth of Africa are an extremely important stakeholder group, and we aim to empower these youth using tactics specifically designed to reach them in their language and their culture, to speak and act knowledgeably and powerfully against the challenges posed by plastic waste in our environment. So if we're moving on to economic incentives and enterprise development, SST understands that the cost of plastic pollution is enormous and it is growing. It's affecting not only human health and the environment, but also numerous economic sectors that rely on marine and coastal environments to generate their income for themselves and their families. From fishing to agriculture, tourism to real estate, the economic impact of plastic pollution is widespread and deep. While much of the plastic pollution is technically recyclable, does it get recycled without an end-use market? An end-use market is incredibly important to make the collection of this material financially viable. This plastic, without this end-use market, will remain without value and therefore will not be collected. By establishing economic incentives and developing enterprises around the plastics value chain, we aim to create markets and thereby ensure that the plastics are kept within the circular economy at their highest value and at the lowest cost to society. I think that's a very important point as well to make. So I want to just share with you an example of such an intervention that SST is currently undertaking in partnership with others, but it's very specifically focused on the Motherwell community in the Eastern Cape.
It's like people have got into the habit of just throwing rubbish down. I just see litter everywhere. We used to call them Mandela's daisies. All the bushes had plastic on them, all different colours. And a lot of this litter blows into the Motherwell stormwater canal.
The communities do not know the importance of these canals. Well, these canals are flowing down to the Swartkops estuary and to the ocean. And yet now people do not know that information and that they are dumping this plastic.
So bringing all that plastic and broken little bits with it, and that then goes into the sea. So it not only affects the animals and plants too, for that matter, in the Swartkops estuary, but it also affects terribly the ocean, because that is all going into Algoa Bay.
The plastic pollution crisis in this area is really, really bad, you know. But what's nice about it is that a few members of the communities are aware of the problem and they want to make something good about it. They want to start educating people. There's an environmental club here in Motherwell called Hlumani Nande. There's also environmental educators, and also there's Ziqhamo Buyback Center. So people are aware of the plastic problem.
In the project, there is a training component and an awareness component. And the idea is that we train the people that are going to build it, and then that those skills can be carried forward in operational phase and extended to the rest of the community. And at the same time, people can be drawn to the facility because it's showcasing what we can do with waste. So we want to build a centre with waste and attract tourists and etc. that can then support the ladies' crafts, support the food outlets, support the food gardens.
Saqala usebenza 1999. Apha kumle project iminishuba eligama layo lithi noziqhamo. Ithetha into yoba yonke into esiyenzayo apha eprojectini funeka ikhuphe iziqhamo. Nalapha kwi-community sibe neziqhamo.
We really just want to focus on community upliftment, empowerment of women and children, reducing waste to the estuary, and local economic development opportunities and awareness.
SST is coming in to do research to see what is the current level of litter in the community, and we'll come back then at the end of the project to assess if there's been any change or impact that is a result of the redevelopment of the buyback centre.
Close to 40 bags that we clean just from this small area right here. It's still not completely clean. As you can see, we just removed the biggest items and the newest items, because next week we want to come back and see what we find that's new on this area.
The idea was that the people in the street in Motherwell could pick up rubbish and get paid for it, and that is how we would clean up Motherwell and uplift the people.
So I think this project is going to have a huge impact, you know, in the behavior of the community, and also just making them aware of plastic pollution.
The information that we receive and the knowledge, it is the one that will make sure that we disseminate to the communities.
We are buying the waste. We are sorting the waste as we received it from the community and go and sell it.
Ucheckers no refuse bag ulinda siyazithena sizijike zibe into ethengiswayo njengalo mnqwazi ndiwuthweleyo. Iyasincedisa kakhulu ukwenza izinto imali xa siyithengisile.
Just remember, pick up your rubbish, take it with you, put it in a bin, or if you can make something from it, reuse it or make craft from it. Please, we have to stop littering.
What I really hope and am looking forward to is that it will hopefully be a catalytic effect, you know, so to see what happens next.
In fact, you start small in the area of Motherwell where you stay, then you grow bigger in the understanding how to keep the environment clean.
The end goal is to ensure the Motherwell Buyback Centre is a sustainable entity that can grow and support the local community in Motherwell.
In terms of the third strategic pillar, that of networking and communications, as I mentioned before, the African Marine Waste Network is the first network of its kind on the continent, and it aims to be an active platform for collaboration and resource and knowledge sharing within countries and across borders in Africa. The The hub is focused on raising awareness and growing knowledge about the complex issues and concerns around plastics to various stakeholders across the value chain, from government to civil society, with the ultimate goal of enabling them and empowering them to start developing locally appropriate solutions to these issues within their own countries. One of the key networking events we are focusing on over the next few months is the Towards Zero Plastics to the Seas of Africa conference, planned for May of next year, which is the premier event in SST's calendar for 2022. Here we will focus very specifically and intentionally on the actions and interventions that need to take place at every step of the value chain to move Africa towards the vision of no plastics entering the environment and ultimately the seas. The conference focuses on attendance in person because there is really no substitution for the benefits of direct communication, especially when we're working together to develop high impact documents in an inclusive manner. A few selected participants and influencers will join online for specific components of the conference, but because of COVID and because of the caution around our COVID protocols, there will also be preparatory workshops and webinars leading up to the conference, which are specifically designed to, one, build interest in the conference objectives of regional and national action plans, and two, allow us to move straight into action at the ultimate conference. The ultimate product of the conference remains an overarching guide to best practice for development of action plans with a very clear decision-making framework. Other outputs that will come from the conference will include smaller publications and inspirational educational films. But we know that this cannot be an ordinary conference. We understand that considering the plastic waste challenge in Africa as it stands today, and of course how it is projected to grow, the urgency for Africa to move towards zero plastics to the seas is incredibly high, and this cannot be overstated. The conference represents a focused period in which to write the regional and national action plans that are necessary to manage plastic waste. And this is, of course, in line with the calls the same by UNEA and UNEP and fully aligned with UN resolutions. Most countries are not adequately prepared to develop such plans, and the issues around plastics and plastic waste management are complex, multifaceted, and cross-cutting. Writing of the draft action plans will be the focus of the workshops and the periods between the workshops, during and after the conference, and the conference itself must therefore be structured and facilitated in a manner that empowers and enables each country to be able to act when they leave the conference and move back to their own country. We, of course, would love to extend a very warm invitation to all of you to consider presenting on your very important work at the conference. So if you are interested and keen, please do get in touch with us afterwards and we'll give you more information. So abstracts are being accepted under the following themes. We've got production and consumption, and this is really around unpacking how the flow of plastic waste gets into the environment from the production, manufacture, point of sale, and consumption of plastics, and how this can be reduced. We move into collection and sorting, and here we are looking at insights and interrogation of the prevention of leakage of plastic into the environment, specifically focused on how plastic is collected from a post-consumer perspective and sorted for further processing. Here we're looking at formal versus informal, municipal versus private sector, and of course the requirements of the necessary infrastructure and how we can expand and make sure we've got the required capacity to meet the demand. We look at recycling, and here it's unpacking the role of recycling products or materials. Here we're talking about mechanical closed loop recycling, mechanical open loop recycling, plastic to plastic, chemical recycling, and how we can then produce new packaging products or feedstock through these processes in terms of the management of plastic waste for Africa. In terms of disposal, we're looking at exploring mechanisms for controlled disposal of plastic waste in ways that prevent leakage into the ocean, including, but of course not limited to, sanitary landfills, but not dump sites, incineration, and plastic to fuel technologies. Another theme we're looking at including is mismanaged waste and the important role that municipalities play, especially within an African context. So mismanaged waste in Africa is open burned or either dumped directly into or leaked into land or waterways. And the critical role we want to emphasize here is that of the local authorities or the municipalities in the prevention of leakage of plastic into the environment. Then, of course, we look at cross-cutting issues. We need to unpack topics that cut across and influence many sectors and stakeholder groups. Here we're looking at legislation and policy, consumer education and empowerment, data availability and collection methodologies, etc. So in summary, I just want to say that we are really looking forward to be able to see you in person at the conference. But even with the webinars, we would warmly invite you to take part. And we really hope that you will find the interest and the time to join us. So thank you very much for giving me your attention today. Special thanks to the generous sponsors, the Norwegian Retailers Environment Fund. And I really do hope that you enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you very much.